I would look at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Oh my gosh, I just danced Aurora 2 months ago and I can't get through this 10-minute ballet. Like, what is wrong with me? The biggest I ever got was a size 6. That was considered obese in the ballet world. Even if you're going through something and you don't know why you're going through it, there's a purpose for it.
What you're about to hear is one of the most honest conversations I have had on the show. We get into what it actually looks like to be a professional dancer whose body starts working against her while her career is at its peak, and on top of that, having multiple doctors tell her nothing is wrong. We talk about identity, body image, the toxic culture that is still embedded in the ballet and dance world today that nobody wants to say out loud, and what it takes to rebuild yourself when the thing you've given everything to is taken away. This one goes far beyond dance, and I know you're gonna love it. But before we get into it, one quick thing. Most people listening to this show have never hit the follow button, and it genuinely takes just 2 seconds. When you do it, it tells the algorithm this show is worth sharing, which means more people like you will find it, and I can keep bringing guests like this into the room. So hit the follow wherever you're listening and send it to one person that needs to hear this today. And now let's get into it. Yay, you guys. I'm here with Kathryn Morgan. She is a former soloist at New York City Ballet, a YouTube powerhouse with one of the most iconic channels in the ballet world, and CEO of her own company. She speaks out against body shaming in the dance world while using her vulnerability to help an entire generation of young dancers feel less alone. So I'm so excited you're here, Kathryn. Welcome to Kicking It Real.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I'm
a huge Rockette fan. I don't know how you guys did that many shows a day. Like, Nutcracker gave us an appreciation for you. So I'm like, all the props to you.
Isn't it so funny? It's always the people like where I'm just like, I could never. One day maybe some old like point pictures could circulate of me, but I would be so embarrassed for you to see because I don't know how you do it. So it goes both ways. We're going to just warm it up. What have you been kicking it with lately?
I am actually working on, this has been a long time in the making, but I'm working on my own ballet class albums. I play the piano. And for like a decade now, I've wanted to do my own albums. And so the first one is like pretty much done. And the second one, which is a point one, which nobody does, is almost done as well. So once I'm like super excited to launch those, that's kind of been the main focus. And I have a couple other ventures in the works too.
Is it going to be, so you're doing both a class and the music for the class, or just one?
Mm-hmm. Oh. It's basically like an album, like, a 30-something track album, like pliés and tendus and this and that. But it's coming from somebody who both dances and teaches and plays the piano. So like I have been obsessive about the tempos because anybody who's taken my class knows I get really annoyed with tempos. And so it's like a thing. It's like, oh, here she goes with it's too fast, it's too slow. So I'm like obsessive about these tracks and these tempos.
I have so many things to say about that. Number one being I started when I would tape ballet classes, it was like a cassette tape though. And I'm sure yours is a million times better. I don't remember it that much, but shout out Miss Ginny. She's much older at this point and was back then too, but she like would just play her cassette tapes and we would just do them. And also I've been wanting to get into playing the piano. I have a keyboard that I would play with my grandma growing up, but I played clarinet, so I can kind of read music a little bit, but I would just learn songs from her and try to teach myself. But I'm going to have my keyboard here soon. And that's like my 26 it's just so fun. And also
it's so fun.
So cool to just like randomly, I don't know how often you randomly are at an event with like a piano or whatever, but you just whip out a piano song. People are like, wow. That's so cool.
I've done that before. My thing is that I make a lot of mistakes. So recording is great because you can go back and delete. Let's try again. Delete. So like these are very carefully crafted. But yeah, no, I've been playing since I was 9. So
that's so cool. Okay, sorry, fangirling over that for a second.
What are you also, for those
of
you under the age of like 25, a cassette tape is like a thing we used to use.
I don't even like that's before the CD days even, which I think we're slowly phasing out of that as well.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. What are you kicking to the curb?
I think I'm in this new like reinvention phase. I'm calling it kind of Kathryn Morgan 2.0. For a long time on YouTube, I've been on YouTube for 12 years and kind of have felt stuck and got to a burnout place with ballet and teaching. And I'm kind of just coming out of the woodwork now, kind of going through some personal things as well. And so it's like I'm reinventing myself and becoming a little more, I think, trying to appeal a little bit more to a mature audience, even though I've hopefully helped lots of different generations of dancers. But now I'm 37, and so I can't really do the content I did when I was 25. Like it's kind of pivoting a little bit. My own career is pivoting a little bit, so kind of kicking my old self to the curb and
That's
starting afresh.
it's cool to hear you say that because I feel
Mhm.
like you have had so many different reinventions, but all within the same. And I've been feeling that not to the same extent at all because I have not been in the content YouTube world for as long, so I'm still just a baby, but I love the idea that now it's turning into this thing where it can kind of evolve with you a little bit instead of having to
Yes.
stay stuck where we are, which we'll get into that. But I kind of want to go back because starting at painting a picture for everyone, you were 9 living in Alabama when you first saw New York City Ballet, which that kind of
Yes.
sparked it for you. And you talked about seeing them perform Nutcracker. What did that certainty feel like as a young dancer? And then did that ever kind of shift or did you have any doubt before you got there?
It never wavered. When I was 9, we were in New York for Thanksgiving. And actually, while we were there, we saw New York City Ballet does Nutcracker and we saw the Rockettes. And I think we saw Phantom too. It was like the three like big shows,
It was a
which I
toss
still
up
love
what you
to
could
this day. Yeah.
who knows what it could have
um,
been.
exactly. And I walked out of, and what was odd about that time with New York City Ballet is the orchestra was on strike. And so I saw at Lincoln Center this world renowned ballet company to a taped track. So there was not even an orchestra.
Wow.
And I walked out of there and I was like, that's it. I want to be up there. That's what I'm going to do. And my parents were like, okay. And it never wavered. I tried other things. I tried gymnastics and figure skating. And my parents were like, just go be a brain surgeon. They make more money. Like, my mom was like, want to be an architect? So we tried. And that was it. And it was only ever New York City Ballet. I think because of how much the corps de ballet dances, they're on more than the principals. Like, and I can attest to that too, having been in the company as a core member, you are on every night, every ballet, and dancing. And so that was it for me. And so I knew I wanted to be there. And my dad like helped me make a plan. And so when I was 15, I went to the summer intensive. And within a week, they asked me to stay for the year. So it was kind of like made a plan, did it. There was no option.
Okay, that's so cool. When you were leading up to that, were you at a just doing ballet training wise to get to that point?
I no, I have been doing jazz, which I tell a lot
Mm.
of people, you've got to have more than just ballet because there, especially at City Ballet, there were so many times when I was like, thank God for my jazz training. Like doing Who Cares or doing any type of balancing. Like there's that little extra quality that he had that was somewhat jazzy. And so like even West Side Story Suite we did. And so I remember not feeling lost because I had had jazz training.
Mm.
I was doing ballet seriously most of that time, but I remember even I was taking ballet at Mobile Ballet in Mobile, Alabama, and then I was taking jazz at Sheffield's School of Dance. Shout out to Sheffield's here also. And so I was studio hopping back and forth just to get all the different types of classes I could. And honestly, there were so many instances when I was so grateful for that. You have to have more
Wow.
than just ballet.
No,
Mhm.
but that's also so real. But I don't have as in depth of a ballet like history, but I took ballet history in college and also shout out my college professor Sherry. She like educated us so much on that and Balanchine specifically. It was always also I was always very taken aback, not aback, captured by all the like lighting elements
Mhm.
in all of that work as well, which now like I've never thought about it from a jazz perspective, probably because I was in the audience just like, oh my gosh, they're on point and they're so amazing. Like
Yes.
I don't ever have the
Yes.
time to really
Uh-huh.
take
Yep.
that in. But also,
Yep.
wow, on not having an orchestra, I can't even imagine
how different that would be. I don't know if you noticed it when you were
I mean, I
watching
would
the show or
do
not, but
at 9, I didn't care. I
yeah,
really
I was gonna
didn't
say,
care.
I would say probably
I was
not.
like, that's pretty. But actually, now having been in the company, one of the incredible things is seeing that live conductor in the pit every night.
Ugh.
And, it makes it tricky because if the conductor is on one that day, you're at his mercy. And there are many stories I have where it was too fast or too slow.
I would
And you're
say, is
just
this
kind
where
of
the
like,
tempo maybe
yes,
started a little bit? Like,
maybe. And so I've done many guestings where you have your taped track and you know exactly what's going to be. So there is something nice about that, but there is nothing like live music.
yeah. Oh my gosh. What was it
Hmm.
like being 17 joining? Because you're still such a baby at
I was
that
such a baby.
point.
I didn't know what a big deal it was. I think being that young saved me because they threw me into the deep end very early with roles. And I think had I known what a big deal, like you're doing Juliet at Lincoln Center, like this is kind of a big deal. I think it would have scared me. Like now,
Mm-hmm.
I would like 20 years later, I'd be like, I'm doing what, where? But I think at 17, that was always my dream and my goal. And I just did it. And I was like, okay, cool,
It's like
great.
that level of naivety a
Yeah.
little bit is
Hmm.
sometimes helpful. What is like the average age that you would say most people are booking?
At that time, it was still the age of what we call the baby ballerina. So a lot of us, and maybe even still nowadays with New York City Ballet specifically, we were 17, 18, 19 getting into the company. That really doesn't happen anymore. I think they at least want them to have graduated high school. Was only a junior in high school when I was hired. I was going
Oh
into
my
my senior
gosh.
year of high school, which thinking about it now was insane that I did my senior year of high school my first year in New York City Ballet. But
Insane.
nowadays, with the City Ballet is the anomaly. Most other companies, you have to go through several other things, like a trainee program or a second company, like such and such Ballet
Yeah.
2. And so by the time you actually get hired into the company, you're maybe 21, 22, 23 with everywhere else. So it's a little bit of a longer process than it was in my era. Um, but I think us, with New York City Ballet as well, there's the feeder school of the School of American Ballet. Like you have to go through the school. And I felt very well prepared because, Peter Martins would come and watch classes all the time or teach classes, or the ballet masters would be like, so it was this little world that it just felt like the next step. It wasn't like, okay, I'm graduating ballet school and having to move cities, change companies,
Yeah.
change buildings. It's all in the same building. So I think that helped as well.
Like, what a cool pipeline
Yeah.
situation. So then your transition from core member to soloist at 21, what is that timeline like? Is that normal or was that fast?
Everybody's path honestly is different.
Okay.
Age wise, I don't think in my experience, they're not looking at age in terms of promoting. Some people it took 10 years. Some of us it was really fast. Some of us, by the time actually what was interesting, by the time I was promoted to soloist, people were like, when are you getting promoted? Which I was very grateful for. When I got promoted, I felt like I earned it. I felt
Yeah.
like people saw it coming instead of feeling like, oh, she got promoted early and then I would have had to have proven myself for years. By the time I got promoted, I was doing core soloist and principal parts all in the same week, all in the same time. And people were
My
like,
gosh.
when is it happening? I remember one tour we were on, we went to Saratoga every summer. It was like the summer residency. And I got injured the second week we were there. And they had to replace me in 8 ballets in 1 week. And I think at that point they were like, okay, we got to promote this girl because she's just doing like 8 ballets in 7 days. All various parts, principal, solos, part. So they were like, okay, my promotion came soon after that. It's
I
like,
was going to say
all
that's
right.
like swing brain in Broadway world
Yes,
times a million,
yes,
probably, because
yes.
the dynamic, even let alone completely different shows, but even like dancing in a group, dancing by yourself, like that's just different, even parts of your brain to have to use, which I don't think not everyone understands how difficult that
It was
is.
a lot. It was,
I
but there were some days I would show up and be like, what am I dancing at? Or one day I remember blanking and looking down and be like, what costume am I in? Like literally just like, wait, okay, that's where we are right now.
It's something about the younger brain too. I'm sure, again, that naivety of it, you're just like, this is just what it is. Like, this is what life is. And not having those pre-adult, like, college years, you're just like, this is my life now.
This is what it is. Yeah.
Do you credit something to your promotion, or was there a certain quality about you as a dancer, whether it was your performance abilities or your work ethic, that maybe got you to that promotion relatively fast?
I think, to be honest, it was a combination of things. I remember when he promoted me, Peter Martins talked to me about my work ethic, and just I had worked so hard. I had proven myself on stage. I think I was really good at delivering. I was the one that if they needed somebody to go into a spot, I was plugged in for various, to put Katie on, put Katie on, she can do it. I remember, my Romeo switched 2 hours before the full length once. And it was just like, okay, so I could deliver. And I think I also, had my quality that made me stand out there was my artistry. I didn't look like everybody else. I was not the athletic one. I was not the technical wizard. My thing was drama in a dress. Like, give me anything drama in a dress and we were good. So like a Juliet or, so I think a combination of things.
Of all those things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that came naturally, or you were just maybe so immersed in the world and life because your high school experience was even cut short that you just were in it?
I think I was in it. I also credit Mobile Ballet, actually, where I trained. We had so many performance opportunities growing up. We were like a little mini regional company, and you could audition when you were 11. So by the time I was 11, I was doing a fall piece, Nutcracker, and a full-length spring ballet every year, and then our yearly recital. So that was like in addition to a recital. And so, I mean, by the time I went to New York, I had danced Clara, and I had danced Snow Queen and Arabian and Bluebird and Sleeping Beauty. Like, I had time on stage. And so I think that was a huge part of it, that I actually felt very comfortable on stage rather than like, oh my gosh, like I'm just out of ballet school and really haven't had much performance opportunities.
Yeah. So you were almost bred to do it in like a good way and not in a bad way at all. But it's very rare that you get such a well-rounded and, I don't want to say directly transferable, but, emulating it closely enough, because it's not the world we maybe live in today, but I wanted to move on a little bit to when you received your diagnosis after 8 doctors that told you you were kind of making things up. So what were you feeling? And I also wanted to talk about how you were able to advocate for yourself so well, because I feel a lot of people, after they get maybe 2 you're crazies or whatever, they're, think they're crazy, but you obviously didn't do that.
For context for people, if they don't know, when I was 21, I had just been promoted to soloist. I had just danced Aurora in the Sleeping Beauty, which is the hardest role in all of ballet. And I had started putting on weight at a rate that I would have had to have been sitting on the couch doing nothing but eating. And we were dancing 8 to 10 hours a day. And for a 21 professional athlete, that was odd. So long story short, first they found the underfunctioning thyroid. And then 2 years later, once I had left the company because I was just so ill and couldn't function, we discovered it was Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition. But it took me 9 doctors to get there because, if a professional ballerina who, granted, had gained 40 pounds, according to normal doctors, look at me and went, you look fine. Like, you don't look big, you don't look fat. And I'm sitting there going, I have gained 40 pounds. And I remember like holding my phone, showing pictures, like, this is what I looked like 2 months ago. And so finally one took me seriously and said, yes, while you're still considered small, because actually, and this is what's so sick about the ballet world, the biggest I ever got was a size 6. That was considered obese in the ballet world. Like 40, yeah. So that was maybe pushing an 8, maybe. That was the biggest I had ever been. And yet I was considered like, oh, this girl is overweight and fat. Yeah. This is why I speak out about this, because it's actually when I'm sitting talking to like people who aren't in the ballet world, I'm like, this is sick. But so to any doctor, somebody who's a 6 or even an 8 is like healthy and
Right.
normal and like great. But no, I had put on 40 pounds. And so this doctor finally was like, you're a professional athlete, your rate of change. Let's do some further testing.
Well, right. And so many nuanced things in this because
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that, right. And that's it's so interesting to the disconnect in doctors even to be like
Mhm,
when you're saying that and any quick weight gain or loss is concerning, which I don't that is crazy to me.
mhm.
When you were having this weight gain in the company and you're still dancing, did you feel any like physical s- symptoms or was it more a mental or directors or people telling you like, hey, you're gaining weight? Does that make sense?
Yes. No, both. Because I would look at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. But the other part of this illness for me was that my muscles started to disintegrate. And so I would go up on point and just like come off of it or feel like my legs weren't supporting me, which up until that point, as an athlete, like every single
Hmm.
little change in your body, which I'm sure you do too. But, like, it was weird, so I couldn't get like, I'd just be in the back of the rehearsal like, "Oh my gosh, I just danced Aurora 2 months ago, and I can't get through this 10-minute ballet. Like, what is wrong with me?" And for non-dancers, Aurora is a 3-hour marathon and a half. Like, literally. So,
That's insane.
it was yeah, and then, of
Oh,
course, ballet masters coming up to you going, "I'm wondering if you're aware that you've put on weight." I'm like, "Gee, I had no idea." Like, yes, I knew. And yeah, so it was a combination of both. And then, of course, that completely messes you up mentally because your whole existence as a dancer is what your body can and cannot do, or can and cannot look like, or can you fit the costume. And I would go down to the costume house and it would be like 4 inches from closing. And so it really messes you up mentally.
yeah, mentally. I mean, the ignorance
Yeah.
of the just because like don't we all know directors were probably dancers at one point. Don't you know
Yes,
that you are staring at yourself in the mirror and you're so hypercritical and I don't know where we think that got lost in translation because I feel like it is getting worse if not better at least in the
correct.
general like
Mhm.
sense of the term. Yeah, what was your breaking point of being done? You
It was 2 years in, and I thankfully, they had kept me around for 2 years, and I had not performed on stage in 2 years, and this was
wait
before the autoimmune condition. Yes.
because of your
I
weight.
yeah. So thankfully, they kept me as an employee, but, like, because of my weight, I couldn't fit costumes. I would have to pull out of shows because I couldn't get through them, or they would take me out, and I remember rehearsing one of the, lovers in Midsummer. I was rehearsing Hermia, who's one of the 2 fighting couples. And it was a dream role of mine, and I remember trying to it's a 4.5-minute solo, and I couldn't get through it.
But
And
also, not for
finally
nothing, like a 4.5 minute solo is also
it's a
very long.
ridiculous.
Like it sounds like a 4.5. Oh, it's only 4.5 minutes and three versus 3 hours. Like it
Yeah.
is still very hard to do
It's
that.
still it might be a 3.5 minutes, it felt like 4.5 minutes, it's long. It is
Still,
anybody who's
yeah.
done it is like, "Oh, the Hermia solo." But so I went the Peter Martins, our director at the time, pulled me aside, and I do have to preface this by I know a lot of people had problems with Peter Martins. He was nothing but lovely to me, actually, the whole time. And he pulled me into his office and he's like, "All right, talk to me. What's up?" And I just lost it. I was like, "Peter, it's been 2 years. I am like as big as a house. I can't fit in any costume." Again, I use the term big as a house in parentheses. That's what I felt like. I can't fit in a costume. I can't get through the ballet. I am miserable. I think I just need to stop. I just need to not renew my contract when it runs out. A lot of people thought I was fired. That was not the case. I chose to leave. So when you in a ballet company, you renew your contract every year. And so, or if you get quote fired, they just don't renew your contract. So I said, look, I just don't give me one for next year. I'm going to go home and get better.
Hmm.
And that was 2013. So that was 13 years ago. Um, And that's when I was done. I was just like, I can't have the pressure of being in New York at Lincoln Center, like trying to do these ballets. Like it just, I wasn't getting better because, as my doctor told me later, one of the worst things for this illness is stress.
I
So
was
you're
literally
just
going to
like,
say that. I was
you're
like,
like
I'm
this.
sure that was really prolonging the getting better for that
Yeah.
because I don't think any illness does well with stress. So
Nope.
when you moved home, you moved back to Alabama, how quickly were you able to get that diagnosis and start treating the symptoms?
That was maybe another 6 months to a year,
Oh my
actually, because
God.
they thought for a long time, they just thought it was my thyroid. The Hashimoto's on top of it is what makes it complicated because many people who have an underfunctioning or overfunctioning thyroid simply get on medicine, take it, and it's better. It's fine.
Hmm.
But when you have the autoimmune component on top of it, it makes it more complicated. And so no matter what medication I was taking, it wasn't working. So that was a while, and I, sat on the couch and wallowed for several months. I think 2 months in, my dad was finally like, "All right, you're done. What's next? Like, we can't do this anymore. Like, either go back to school, figure it out. Like, what are you gonna do?" And pretty soon after that is when I started YouTube.
Well, I was going to say too, I think even just moving as a regular, like regular in quotes, human from New York City back home to a small town is a huge shift in even identity for that in a small term. But then you're literally, were essentially bred to be a dancer. And then you
Yes.
go home and you're on the couch
Yes.
and you're like, what's wrong with me? W-
Mhm.
Where did you come up with the YouTube idea?
I was actually at this sounds so dramatic, but I was at the hospital, and one of the tests I think they were testing me for something called Cushing's
Uh-huh.
disease. I believe that's what this test was, and I apologize if it wasn't, but I took so many, I'm not sure. Is where you go for 4 hours and they take your blood every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes or something like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
And so to pass the time, I would watch YouTube videos. And this was the early stages of YouTube. And I think I had my computer with me because if I remember correctly, you couldn't even get videos on your phone at that point. Again, for those of you under the age of 25, we didn't always watch videos on our phones.
Crazy
Um,
concept.
yeah. So, but I would watch, and I remember sitting there just like on hour number 3 or whatever it was. And I was like, for all the YouTube yogis and beauty influencers, because I remember this was the time of like Michelle Phan, and the early yoga people. I was like, there are no ballet dancers. Like nobody's on here. Um, Later realizing you couldn't do that because everybody was under contract, so you couldn't have a YouTube channel because some dancers tried to start one later and they couldn't because they're under contract. So I was like,
Mhm.
well, let's see what happens. And so I started with stage makeup and I started with, eventually kind of telling my story a little bit. And it blew up because I was the only one. I was the only one doing it.
A power
Um,
with power not having a job and more air quotes.
yes.
Power in
Yes.
that. Wow, that I mean, I didn't even think about that from a ballet standpoint, but
Hmm.
can obviously relate to a different degree of being under contract and being able
Yes.
to say certain things. That answers my question of what they got from you versus what was lacking. Do you think there was anyone else in the space, maybe not even on YouTube, or was this not any type of conversation at all at this point in time happening in the ballet world?
There was not. I think our only source of anything was Dance Magazine, Point Magazine, that even at the time they were print issues. And so you would only get whatever news or whatever stories once a month or even every 2 months, because I think Point was every 2 months. So it was like this whole thing, and I remember even people in my industry, my mother was like, "What are you doing? Like, this is not good. You're gonna, like, spill secrets," and I was very careful to start, and of course, my whole philosophy on it has changed in 13, 14 years, however, 12 years. Because at the time I was saying, "You have to be thin and you da da da," and, like, "You have to," and now
Mm,
I'm like, "Screw that." Like, let's be honest, So even my whole philosophy on it has progressed in
yeah.
12 years. But it was a way for me to tell my story. It was a way for me to kind of start opening up the ballet world. And it took some time. It was really only even during COVID that my mom was like, "Oh, I get it. I get what I always wondered, like, now I understand. Thanks, Mom.
I do feel like you were just ahead of the time
I was
and
just ahead
like
of the time.
the
Yep.
trailblazer in the industry. When
Yep.
you started kind of opening up a little bit, did you feel fear or did you worry about that, maybe costing you reputation or opportunities down the line?
Yes, I did. Especially the first time I was on YouTube, I didn't think I was gonna ever dance in a ballet company again. So that was a little different. But then once I had joined Miami City Ballet and left and told that story, that's when I had to be like, okay, if I am blacklisted in this industry for the rest of my life, am I okay? And at that point, I had built up enough of quote an empire, not really, but like enough of a name and enough of a platform that I thought, okay, I can survive on my own. But it really wasn't until I left Miami City Ballet that that's when I was like, okay, I can do this. Because yeah, I was very wary up until then because one
It's
wrong move, that's it.
Yeah, it is a slippery slope of wanting to be transparent and help future dancers, but also, the literal legalities of things
Hmm.
and what you can say. I always say when I try to talk about certain things too, I always feel like having expectation is always better because I think it's a lot harder to go into a ballet company and not think there's any body shaming or any expectations in that way. And then you go in and then it's like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I wasn't expecting that because I think everything in life, expectations are literally everything. Do you
Yep.
think you focus now more on that side of it or trying to maybe provoke some change in the long term?
I I'm kind of two sides to this. And this is something I realized in my reinvention of myself here. I have two paths. The first path is opening up the ballet world to people and making it fun and like, yes, you can come into this world even if you're not a professional. Here's how to appreciate it. Here's how to have fun with it or dress like it or enjoy it. Kind of like the joy side. Like come
Mhm.
in, see what we're doing. It's not scary, especially if you're doing it recreationally. Like that's why I'm a huge advocate for adult ballet. Like please come in. And then my second path is once you're in, I'm like, okay, here's the reality. Here's what it really takes.
Mm,
I've filmed a video yesterday that it probably by the time this airs it'll be up, but it's like the 12 things I wish I knew before going into a professional company. Because I think about the parents or the young students and I don't want them going in blind. I don't want them going in thinking it's all tutus and tiaras, literally. And so I have these two paths of like, I want to find the joy in it. I want to keep the joy in it. I want you to find joy in it. But then I also want to tell you the truth. So it's these two kind of lanes that I go back and forth in.
yeah, it's like a balance of it
Hmm.
teeter-tottering because it's also, it can get kind of gloomy very quickly because there
Yes.
are so many things. I as you were talking about that too, I'm like, should we have what's his name? Timothy Chalamet? Should have had him in on this so you could have been
Yes.
like, "Listen, bro,
Listen. Yeah.
here's the beauty in that," because but it was
Yeah.
I don't know if it was one of those like good press is good press because it really got people
Talking
talking.
about it.
And yeah, like what was your thought on that?
It's funny because I didn't put out any kind of video. I've been in hermit mode the last like 2 or 3 months. So I didn't put out any video and people are like, what is your take? But to me, it's like, because he said it, look how much press we got. Look how much talk there was. Other dancers speaking out. I remember watching Megan Fairchild's video and think it was brilliant. And just like hearing from these dancers and hearing from this industry that normally you don't. We don't have celebrity status like he does. And so he kind of gave us a moment. Do I think he's somewhat right? If we're not careful, the industry could die. If we're not careful, if we don't keep having these conversations, if we don't keep progressing ballet forward, it could potentially start to shut down a little bit. I have thoughts on how we should move that forward as well. But but at the same time, I'm like, thanks, sir. You
Yeah,
just
like
gave us a great like you just gave us some great press.
like
So
literally great press. If you
mhm.
don't mind getting into it, what are some maybe just one of the ways that you would love to see some change, maybe even like structurally in the ballet world?
Yeah. we've still got to move forward with our inclusivity and diversity and different bodies. I think people are led to believe that it's changing as faster than it actually is. I think it's going to be generational. But I also think, and this is something I've been coming to over the last couple months in my hermit mode, because of the rise of TikTok and because of the rise of YouTube, even because now I think I just saw the Oscars are going to be on YouTube moving forward. They're not even going to be on television.
Oh, wow.
We've got to do more ballet on film and in an accessible way. And whether that's mini ballets on TikTok or mini, and I'm not talking about like, get ready with me. I'm talking about like actual things that people can see on their phone. That's going to open up the ballet world. You can't wait for people to go to the theater anymore. You've got to bring it to them because, another example I think of is Wicked. Wicked's always done well, this and that. But now with the film, the show is doing even better. It's not going to kill the show. The show is going to do better because people are like, oh, I saw it. I want to go see it live.
Yeah, because we all know everything's better live. It's the same thing as when you read the book, you get more details. When you go in person versus on a screen, it's going to be better. Do you feel like that could be done by companies themselves? Because I know from a professional ballet dancer, at least, they're probably not contractually allowed to be doing that.
I think companies should do it. I think we should be doing some virtual galas. I really do. I think a company, because not everybody can fly to New York. Not everybody can fly to wherever. Do a virtual online YouTube gala. Somehow, I'm sure some tech person can figure out how to charge for tickets, even if it's like, I don't know, $20 to be able to log in and watch it. And then people can, you're not limited by the seats in the theater. There could be unlimited people paying $20 to see a gala.
Maybe a Kathryn Morgan.
I might be working on that. I might want to work on that.
I'll buy tickets. I'll come in person. I won't even just do virtual.
Because then the other thing that occurred to me with doing this is like, should I be telling my idea on the airwaves? I don't know. But you know what? Put it out there. Put it out in the universe. You could also not all be in the same place. Because I have friends all over the country. So maybe there's somebody I have a bunch of friends at Ballet West in Salt Lake City. I have a bunch of friends in New York. I have friends, so maybe it's like you could do different people, different places. And then it all promotes everybody. I'm just saying.
Listen, we can get creative. We can get creative nowadays.
Maybe we put a Rockette in there, like any Broadway people want to hop on board. Let's go.
As long as I don't have to wear a point shoe, I'm there.
Great.
Because I could put a point shoe on. It could be like the comedy portion of it. We could bring the laugh back to it.
Because then, this is the thing. It's like some people don't go to the ballet because they don't know what to expect. Well, isn't that weird? Isn't it like pink and frilly and frou-frou and I don't know. But then if you say, no, actually, it's this too, then they're much more likely to be like, oh, the next time Nutcracker rolls around, I want to go buy a ticket.
What do you say to those people because the Nutcracker is a staple and I could see it every month if I wanted to. But for someone that's maybe not a dancer or a ballet dancer, what do you say to them when they're like, oh, well, it's the Nutcracker. I've already seen that. And I feel like people get in their head that that's ballet. Like they don't even know what all these other options are.
Nutcracker is definitely probably the most famous ballet. It's a company's moneymaker. They keep the lights on with Nutcracker. There's so many different versions. I think that's another misconception is that if you've seen one Nutcracker, you've seen them all, which is so not the case. Even the quote classical Nutcrackers are all different. And then you have different versions like Mark Morris's The Hard Nut that they do in New York. They have Joffrey Ballet's Christopher Wheeldon's version. He set it during the World's Fair in the early 1900s, and it's a totally different production. So, there's even within Nutcracker, there are different versions. But it's the bread and butter of a ballet company. And I encourage people to look beyond Nutcracker because it is a fairy tale and it's a very simple story. And if you're like, oh, that's too sugary for me, try something else. There's rep evenings. Even Swan Lake is much more dramatic than Nutcracker. Nutcracker is meant for families. And so it's not a complicated story and it's lovely and it's happy and you walk out smiling, but that's actually very rare in ballets. Most ballets are dramatic or don't have a story and, there's
Yeah.
options.
There's so many options.
Mhm.
I wish actually there is a Houston Ballet. I should you're inspiring me. I gotta go look when they have a show and I'm
They're
gonna go.
phenomenal.
We're going back in time. You were back in starting your YouTube channel
Yep.
and you were going through you were doing that transition period. You also got into writing for Dance Spirit magazine and
Mhm.
judging for YJP, all of those different things while, YouTube was probably still at your core. When you were entering your YouTube era, trying to get into that first transition, were you seeking out those opportunities or was it kind of like let's just try this and see what happens?
It's been so long, I don't really remember. No, Dance Spirit came to me, I remember, because I was doing Q&A videos on YouTube
Mhm.
about ballet and dancing. They're like, "That's a great idea, let's turn it into an article." Um, and then YAGP, I remember reaching out in 2018, maybe 2019, and just saying, "Hey, I'd love to be a judge. Here's my thing." And they were just like, "Great." And they brought me on and I've been there ever since. So I don't know. I think things just happened through
Mhm.
YouTube, through kind of creating a platform. Um, I was also that dancer that was like, I'm never going to teach. And here we are. So,
I feel like
um,
most of us are like that.
yeah. Yeah. I think
Yep.
there's that stereotype teaching that once you start teaching, you're done. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, you're a has been. And I had
Yep.
to get over that. I still sometimes revert back to that. Like, oh, I'm like nobody anymore but that's so not the case.
No.
Um, so yeah, it just kind of all just unfold
Kind of started
unfolded from
happening.
YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have a moment of, "Oh, like, I need to detach from dance," or the opposite of, like, "Oh, I'm trying to hold on to anything in dance?" Because when I stopped performing as well, I personally went through a period of, like, "I'm not a dancer, like, who am I?" Because
Mm,
you kind of are in that period of, like, "Who the heck am I outside of performing?" So what was
yeah.
that part like for you?
I went through ballet burnout about a year ago, to the point where I've I've probably retired like 4 times at this point. And on YouTube every time I'm like, I'm done. I'm not done. I'm not gonna do this again. And even now I'm like getting back into class. I don't know if I'll ever like be on stage balletically again, but like, and getting back into teaching. And so, yeah, I think about a year and a half ago, I was just teaching so much and doing so much and just had been in this world for so long that like I didn't even want to be in the studio. I didn't want to talk about tondus. I was just like, I'm sick of this. Plus, I'm
Mhm.
also, and I'm trying to, this is where I'm hopefully figuring out my YouTube content. I've been on YouTube talking about ballet for 12 years. And I did kind of reach a point where I'm like, I don't know what else to say. Like this this is all I've
You're
got.
like
Like, I
you're like,
don't
"You
know.
guys just scroll back 5 years,
I
you can see it there."
don't
Like
know. But we're finding our way. I'm kind of like updating. That's what I did with the video I filmed yesterday. I'm kind of updating the videos I did over a decade ago
yeah.
because I'm now a decade older and have gone through a second ballet company and gone through a heck of a lot more in my life. So I think it's bringing a 37-year-old perspective rather than a 25-year-old when I started YouTube. So,
Yeah, just giving a little
um,
facelift.
yeah, it's good. There you go. A little ballet plastic surgery, you know. But
Yeah, it's
yes,
fun.
I've gone through various versions of burnout and retiring, and then never mind, I'm not retired, and I'm probably doing that again. So
Which we haven't even got to yet. So, how long were you retired from New York City Ballet and then unretired to Miami?
7 years. It was 7 years. Yeah, 9
That's
years being on the stage.
iconic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my last performance was with City Ballet in 2010. And then I hung on for 2 more years before I left in 2012, 2013. I can't, was it 2013? Might have been 2013. And then I performed with Miami in 2019. So there was no, it was 2012 because there was a 7 year gap for me being in a company and a 9 year gap for me being on stage. I had done guestings here and there in between, but nothing like that. So that was a big one. And yeah, then after Miami, I was like, I'm done. And then I did guestings and I was like, I'm done. And now I'm like,
Never say never. You
Never say
gotta
never.
stop. You gotta stop. Maybe when you stop saying I'm done,
Yep.
you would actually be done. You're like,
Be
well, we'll
done. Yep.
see, and then you'll actually be done. That's like the
Yeah.
reverse psychology of that.
Yep.
What was it like going into that? Were you probably more nervous going into Miami because you had that you didn't have that naivety about you anymore that you did when you were 17?
I think it was interesting. When I auditioned for Miami, I went down for like 4 days and took class with the company. Um, I knew I had built a lot up to that point where if I didn't get the contract, I knew I was going to be okay because I still had my name, I still had my guestings, I still had whatever. So I actually felt less pressure
Mm,
when I was auditioning because I had already built so much. I was actually more concerned about losing what I had already built. Um,
interesting.
because going back under contract, which is why videos did dwindle a little bit at that time, your first and foremost attention and work goes to the company, rightly so, you're under contract. So I think that was actually, I was more concerned about losing what I had built rather than worrying about getting hired and being on stage.
Well, that's so cool to be in a place that you've built something that you're even more proud of than what you once actually thought was your world and
Mhm.
cherished so much. I think that's such an interesting concept that I also very much believe in, not even just in ballet companies, obviously I come from a different world, but that concept of not needing a job and how it affects your performance when you go in that trust state and that sense of, I don't wanna say begging, but almost like, "Oh,
Mhm.
please," like desperate energy. What are your thoughts on that?
It's absolutely true because I was also 30 when I auditioned and 31 when I was hired. So I wasn't even in my 20s anymore. I had lived a life, I had been through an illness, I had been through a lot. Um, and it felt completely different because I wasn't that 18-year-old begging and taking anything and just I would do anything for this job, which I think gets very much exploited, more than people realize. Oh, they'll do anything for this job. I didn't feel that
Mhm.
way. So
Yeah.
that was huge for me.
Yeah. I talk about it a lot too, and I know I have a lot of people who, like, can relate to the older dancer advantage because it is, like we've been talking about, it is such a stereotype expectation that, "Oh, you have to be 17, 18 to in your prime." Are there anything other traits or even from your YouTube CEO era before that, that you felt set you up actually for more success than it would have when you were 17, 18?
For sure. I knew who I was as a person.
Mhm.
Um, when I was 17 and getting into City Ballet, I was a bunhead. I was a bunhead the whole time I was there.
With a
I
little
had
jazz.
with a little jazz. I had no outside interests, life, friends. I didn't date anybody the entire time I was at City Ballet. Like I was such a bunhead
Mhm.
that it when it was taken away from me and when I got this illness, I had nothing. I had nothing. I didn't know who I was, what I liked, what my morals were. I literally. So I think doing the and being on YouTube, you have to get more comfortable with yourself. I was
Yeah.
much better at speaking. Weirdly, one of my gifts now is public speaking, which I never thought was going to happen, but through YouTube. So a lot was developed through that time. And so then when I went into Miami, I was a much more well rounded person inside and outside of the studio. Um, and I think that served me very well.
I always talk about that too, of the weirdly enough, it feels that a lot of confidence is actually built not dancing, and it
Yes.
makes you a more confident dancer, which I haven't quite fully unraveled all of the ins and outs of why that is, but I think there's something so cool about that too, of being able to have a life outside of it and just, like, detach
Yes.
for a second. Do you feel like it affected how you physically dance too, rather even, like, apart from the audition?
I think so. I mean, once I got to Miami, it was a rough year for me, but I think it just gave me outside perspective. And I think it's actually what helped me decide the choices I made during Miami and after Miami is like, I am 31 years old. I have lived a life. I have worked way too hard on my mental health and way too hard on myself to go back into these patterns of being 18. Because that's what, when I was there, I was feeling that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm getting back into my 18-year-old brain and I am 31 years old. And because
That's
that's what
wild.
ballet tends to do.
That is
So
wild.
it was like, okay, perspective, you've worked too hard and gone through too much personally to go back to your child brain. And I think
That
it's huge for me.
Do you think that there's a way for 18-year-old dancers to have that sooner, in the sense of I go so many different ways because I do obviously believe there's a time and place. I hate to use the word hustle, but there's a time where you're kind of in that
Mhm.
grind season, you gotta make it happen. But I want to believe that there is a way you can do this with a little bit more balance, and you don't have to wait till you're in your later 20s and 30s to find that. What do you think about that?
I think we have to set dancers up for it early.
Yeah.
And I think companies have to be on board too, because like we were saying, it's very much a, well, if you don't do this, I have four other people behind you who will. And it's setting that especially as a teenager, because teenagers are very, like, they can be very easily influenced
Mhm.
and don't know how to think for themselves yet. I think it's still guiding them and still like, okay, you're still transitioning out of teenager mode, but it's also like you're an adult now and being treated like adults. Because I don't know if you guys experience this with Rockettes, but in ballet companies, it's notorious that the core is called the kids. Oh, the
Okay,
kids.
explain.
So I was rehearsing, I think it was Romeo and Juliet, and I was barely 18, barely. And I remember the ballet master saying, okay, and then you're going to do this, and then the kids will be around you. And I was like, the kids. I don't think there are any kids in this. And then it occurred to me, she was talking about the core. And it happened again doing like Aurora. Oh, the kids will come. And I'm just like, these core members, some of them are in their 30s and they're still being referred to as the kids. And it was like, that was the first light bulb. And it didn't even register too much at the time. But now looking back, I'm like, that was the first time I realized, okay, some of this is not good. Like, this is not normal. Yeah, because there's some of them,
Yeah.
most of them are older than me at the time.
That
Yeah.
is so degrading. Like, that's so
Mhm.
degrading on,
Mhm.
and not even not even trying to hide it. I mean, I definitely have experienced something not like that though, because luckily for Rockettes, it's just us. And then I feel like it's almost the reverse, if anything, because we do have the ensemble and it's like we're
Yes.
which is an
Yeah.
interesting thing within itself. What What are what are some ways that you wish that ballet companies and directors that they would be able to evolve, or things to start thinking about now, because one day the generation below us will be directors, and what could we
Mhm.
be doing better or differently to help in every aspect, mental, physical, all of the aspects of being a dancer?
Yeah. I think it's tricky because at the end of the day, the front of the room is still running the room. And so there does have to be this level of like, okay, we can't all be trying to talk over top of each other and
Mhm.
like one person has to run the room. But it's also realizing that you're not running a room of students. You're running a room
Mm.
of adults. And so it's still having this kind of open dialogue back and forth, still running the room, but not treating them like children. Because the other thing I see too is when the front of the room is trying to run the room and they are kind of frazzled and overwhelmed and like they don't quite know what's
Mhm.
happening. And then the dancers are back and forth. And it can sometimes just get crazy. So I think the front of the room needs to really know what they're doing and be able to it's almost like leadership training where
Mhm.
you have to give the ballet masters leadership training because yes, you still have to lead, but you also have to acknowledge and respect that everyone else is an adult. It's like this weird balance. You know what I
It's a
mean?
weird, yes, because
Mhm.
I say it all the time, and this is no shade at any person, but It's like anything in life. You can be amazing at your craft. It doesn't mean you're a good teacher at that craft or a
Yes.
good leader. And
Yes.
recognizing that, and I
Mhm.
can obviously not speak for any leader, but it sometimes feels like too the lack of ability to break the generational baggage, or it's like, oh well, I experienced this in my time, so I'm going to do it because that's all I know. Or I mean, not, I'm sure it doesn't come from a bad place from a lot of people, but it sometimes can make you feel that way and completely
Yeah.
change the environment that you're in, and then dancers aren't performing as well as they could be.
Yeah, because I always really respected the ballet masters that really ran the room. You knew they were
Mhm.
in charge, you knew what they were doing. I didn't feel degraded by that, is when it was chaos, and then, like, we're trying to talk, and then you're trying to talk over the top, and it's just, like, this crazy, whereas, like, the person in the front of the room knows they're leading, but they also respect all the other adults
Mm,
in the room.
yeah, totally.
Mhm.
What do you I don't know how it works there either, if you have a lot of, like, one-on-one meetings or feedback sessions like that, what are if when you have your Kathryn Morgan company, what are what are some maybe reframed things that maybe when you got feedback, or a feedback that is given often in the ballet world, or ways that we could reframe that? Like for me, example, not personally, but just the body image ones. One of the things that drives me nuts is when people try to say you need to be skinnier, you need to be more in shape, versus focusing on, hey, let's get you stronger,
Yep,
rather than focusing on what you're lacking,
yep.
as an example.
For me, the first thing with, especially with the bodies, I was always in my best shape when I was had no, it had nothing to do with food or body. It was, I
Mhm.
felt happy with myself, happy with my dancing. I was taking care of myself, but I felt good mentally. And I think a lot of directors don't realize it's not about saying, well, I need you to lose 20 pounds or I need you to do this. And like, that's going to mentally mess up the dancer even more. And then it's never going to work. So it's actually weight, in my opinion, weight and body is the byproduct.
Mhm.
Because as a professional dancer, you are doing enough to be in phenomenal, your best phenomenal shape. Your best, not the person next to you, but your best. So if we're all dancing and we're all doing things and we're all in a good mental space, the body will take care of itself. It's not this whole, like, I'm going to threaten you with a white unitard like I was. That never works. It might work for a week, but then we go the other way. And so the dancers that, in my opinion, that struggle with not, quote, being in their best shape, it has nothing to do with food. That's a byproduct. It's a byproduct of stress. It's a byproduct of their environment or how they're feeling about their dancing. So first and foremost, it's reframing that, um, and making sure everybody is dancing. Because the other frustrating thing is they're like, well, we need you to get in shape. And you're like, well, you've taken me out of everything and I'm not
Mm.
dancing and I'm sitting in the back of the room and you expect me to be this big around. That
You're
doesn't
like,
work either.
"What when am I supposed to go do
Well,
that
you're
because I'm
supposed
here
to,
all day?"
yeah. You have me standing there. I need to be dancing. So that's the first thing.
Which
The second
also
thing,
I was gonna say, like, I was an understudy in one point piece in college, and I stood, and it was also more painful to be standing than
correct.
to dancing. Like, I was like, my feet hurt
Awful.
so bad from doing nothing.
Yeah.
Anyways,
You'd
continue.
rather be on point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be my first thing. My second thing would be, and this is, I can guarantee you every professional dancer is going to agree with me. If you are a director, do not promise roles.
Mm.
Do not make promises without following through. The amount of people, self included, who have been told, well, I'm going to have you do this. Oh, I'm going to have you do this. Oh, next season, this is coming and you're going to be da 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 da. And that don't follow through is absurd. So just don't say it. Just
Like,
say, like in your meeting, say this is good and this is not, and be honest. But don't make promises and not follow through. It is so bad. It is so bad in the ballet world.
and I don't know why ever. I mean, isn't that it's borderline a lie? Isn't that what we're taught when
Mm-hmm.
we're kids? Like, don't lie. And
Mm-hmm.
also, why are we doing that? Just to like appease people?
Yes. So they just keeps them. Oh, it just keeps them happy. But then you don't follow through. So it's like, again, adults. They're not children. Not that you should
Right.
do this to children either, but like, this is your employee, your colleague. just because we're in tights and leotard and we all look younger than we are, like, doesn't mean that we're not in our 30s or we're not in our 20s. So it's just as a director having honest conversations and don't say things you don't mean and don't promise things you don't intend to follow through on because it never is good. And then you have a bunch of disgruntled dancers and it's just a mess.
Man, I maybe the solution is we all as younger dancers have a little bit more of a life outside of it and then we develop these skills because maybe you
Yep.
know what I mean? Because you're just so in your bubble and you're like, I don't have any other perspective in the world. So maybe
Yep.
that will be a good byproduct of social media, maybe one day.
Yep.
If any of the things we've been talking about, is there a way that dancers who are still performing can take some of that autonomy back and maybe in turn help the shifts that need to happen or just, survive?
I think it really starts at the top. It really
Yeah.
does. And that's why having an outside life is so important and having outside friends is so important and having other things and other hobbies because speaking from experience, if you put all your identity and your worth on your last performance or how your rehearsal went or what you look like in a leotard, it's never going to be enough. It's never because, and I always say this about artistic directors, but defending them, it's a hard job. It is an extremely hard job. Not
Mhm.
everybody's going to be happy. You have to run the room. You have to make casting decisions. You have to make budget casting decisions or budget ballet decisions. So, I know directors get a lot of flack, but it's a hard job.
Yeah.
So it's why you need to. It's like any job. They say don't bring work home. It's hard because as a dancer, you kind of have to view it as a lifestyle,
Yeah.
but it's having the outside perspective can kind of give you reprieve from what's happening in the studio.
No, so real. It's like looking outward, and it's the same as something silly as even if you're in school and something happened, you're like, "Let me just walk away from that for a second."
Yes.
It's actually a simpler solution than we feel it is, but
Mhm.
it's just an all-consuming field because it kinda has to be. So many
Yep.
catch-22s, but, we
Yeah.
we do it for the love of dance. We're getting into the final questions that for everyone that comes on the pod. If you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
I think about this all the time and I always come back to this. Trust your own path. You're
Mm,
going on your path for a reason because if you had told me you're going to go down this path where you're going to get sick and you're going to do this and then you're going to leave a company and you're going to fall off a cliff and you're going to leave a second company and fall off the cliff the second time, like I would be like never mind. So
I'm
like there's
out.
a reason, but every time for me it's always been a way for me to help somebody else. Oh, if I can,
Yeah.
if I went through it, let me help somebody else. So my path is this way for a reason. I'm still going through things currently that I'm like, why am I going through this? It's for a reason. And if you start comparing your path to anybody else's, you're never going to be happy. Because I used to do that too. Oh, so and so got this role by age whatever, and I didn't, and she got promoted by 20, and I'm already 21. And da, da, da. Like you can make yourself nuts. And
Yep.
so, even if you're going through something and you don't know why you're going through it, there's a purpose for it. And I
Yeah.
genuinely believe that, even if it's
Yeah.
simply to tell your story to help somebody else.
It's so true. And it's so real when you're younger too, and you're literally comparing the ages that things happening 100%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. If there is one key takeaway that listeners remember from today, what would you want them to remember?
I think, you have to be a person first. This is another thing that my life coach said to me many, many years ago. Her name is Lynn Goldberg. She said, "You're a human being, not a human dancing. You have to be a human." Yeah. Isn't that good? Yeah. I've
Put
never
that on
gotten
a
out.
t-shirt.
Yes. Yes. You are a human being, not a human dancing. Because I was going through my like crazy bun head phase
Mhm.
where it was like, I got all wrapped up in bun head land and it was like, no, 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 you're a person first.
I love that. I
Hmm.
would put it on a t-shirt, but I'll leave it for you.
Okay. We'll leave it for Lynn.
We'll leave it for later. Where can everyone follow you on socials and subscribe to your YouTube channel? I will link this as well, but you pull out your phones right now and go follow.
YouTube channel is Kathryn Morgan, Kathryn Morgan. She pops right up, so she'll be there
She
if you just type
does.
her in. Um, and then Instagram and TikTok. I am so not on the TikTok game. I've got to do better on TikTok. But
It's hard.
Kathryn_Morgan.
It's
So
hard, we're all
it's
trying.
hard. I'm 37, so I'm not the younger generation.
It's so easy for them. It's okay. Oh my gosh. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here and sharing all of your wisdom and your inspiration. You guys go send this to someone that needs to hear it, and comment what you enjoyed, so we can keep on kicking it. Thanks for being here, and we will see you guys next time.